There are 41 people on federal death row. This is part 3 of the series. Aquilia Barnett, North Carolina, 25 years on death row. For the killings of Donald Lee Allen and Robin Williams, he received the death penalty. In 1994, Barnett and Miss Williams started dating. In March 1995, the two moved into a shared residence in Roanoke, Virginia. Their relationship deteriorated a little more than a year later, and Miss Williams split from Barnett in April 1996. Subsequently, Barnett moved out of their shared residence in Roanoke and went back to live in his mother's home in Charlotte, North Carolina. The breakup was not amicable, however, and Barnett continued to attempt to resume their relationship. Miss Williams was afraid to live in her apartment alone, so a friend, Benjamin Green, was staying with her. Miss Williams had continued to reside in the apartment she had shared with Barnett. When she woke Green up on April 30, 1996, she said, "He was here," alluding to Barnett. Gazing through the window, Green witnessed Barnett using a baseball bat to smash the windows of his vehicle. When Green tried to dial 911, the phone lines were severed. Barnett started bashing at the glass with the bat after noticing Miss Williams inside the apartment. The flat caught fire when he launched a firebomb through a hole he had forced open in the front door. Green opened fire on Barnett, who then ran from the scene. Miss Williams and Green managed to escape the fire by climbing out of a back window. She suffered second- and third-degree burns to her hands and arms. She had to be hospitalized. The Roanoke police received information on Barnett from Miss Williams, and they promptly filed a warrant for his arrest and alerted the Charlotte Police Department, but Barnett was not taken into custody by the Charlotte police. On May 20, 1996, Barnett used his brother Mario Vonnegut Barnett's Virginia driver's license to buy a 12-gauge shotgun in Charlotte. The following day, he gave the rifle back and traded it in for a semi-automatic shotgun. Barnett left his mother's home on June 21, 1996, and made his way to the adjacent crossroads of Morrisfield Road and Billy Graham Parkway. It was just after midnight when Donald Allen pulled onto the crossroads in his blue Honda Prelude. Barnett pulled up to Allen's car, brandishing the shotgun, and told him to get out. When Barnett insisted that Allen put down his wallet, Allen obliged as well. Then Barnett made Allen walk across the road to a drainage ditch. He entered the ditch, shot Allen 3 times in the back, and then dumped his body there. Barnett grabbed Allen's money and the car, then headed to the Roanoke, Virginia home of Robin Williams's mother, Bertha Williams. Since the firebombing, Miss Williams had been living with her mother. When Barnett got to Mrs. Williams's house, he severed the phone wires in the backyard. Then, realizing that the side kitchen door was shut, he tried to enter the house through it and kicked it in after firing his gun into it. When Barnett arrived, Mrs. Williams was inside the house with her 8-month-old grandchild. Miss Williams fled out the front door once Mrs. Williams gave her the order to do so. Barnett went inside, accosted Mrs. Williams, and pursued Miss Williams across the street as she left the home through the front door. Barnett raced by Sonji Hill, a neighbor, who was waiting in the doorway phoning the police. While trying to escape from Barnett, Miss Williams stumbled and she fell. Barnett pulled her by the hair back to her mother's house. He revealed to Miss Williams that he intended to murder both her and himself. When they got back to the house, Mrs. Williams emerged and Miss Williams broke free from Barnett to follow her mother in the direction of the house. Barnett then shot Miss Williams twice. He fired the opening shot, striking Miss Williams in the side from a distance of 10 to 12 feet. The second shot struck her in the back from 4 or 5 feet away. Mrs. Williams was close enough to her daughter to touch her when Barnett fired both rounds. These wounds proved fatal for Miss Williams. Barnett took Allen's car after leaving the murder site, and he drove to Knoxville, Tennessee. He even stole fresh license plates for it. After that, on June 24, 1996, he left the car in a parking lot of a retail mall in Charlotte, North Carolina. That evening, police officers found the vehicle, and in a nearby garbage, they discovered the gun Barnett had used in the murders. On June 25, 1996, Barnett went to his mother's house to turn himself in to the police. Following his apprehension, Barnett led the police to the scene of Allen's murder and showed them where to locate the body. Barnett admitted to the 2 killings and the carjacking. Kenneth Eugene Barrett, Oklahoma, 18 years on death row. A federal jury in Oklahoma recommended on November 18, 2005, that Barrett be sentenced to death for the September 24, 1999 murder of David Eels, a police officer. The deliberate assassination of a state law enforcement officer during a narcotics offense and while the officer was carrying out his official responsibilities was the reason for the death penalty. Another police officer was also hurt. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit overturned Barrett's death sentence on January 19, 2021, due to inadequate legal representation during the penalty phase of the trial. His final sentence is still pending. Anthony Battle, Georgia, 26 years on death row. Battle murdered and essayed his wife, a serving Marine, in 1987 after breaking into the Marine base at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. He received a life sentence. After a few moves, Battle was finally relocated in 1993 to the United States Penitentiary in Atlanta. D'Antonio Washington, a correctional officer, was discovered bleeding profusely from his head while laying on the floor on December 21, 1994. Employees of the prison raced to the area and discovered Battle standing close to a nearby vending machine. Blood spattered on his clothes. Behind the vending machine, a hammer with fresh blood, later identified as Officer Washington's blood, was discovered. Anthony Battle needed the hammer to fix something in his cell, so Richard Boone, a prisoner who was permitted to carry tools, lent it to him. Medical examiners subsequently testified that 3 powerful hits to the head with a hammer were the cause of Officer Washington's death. According to Battle, he chose to strike the first correctional officer he spotted after grabbing the hammer. Robert Bowers, Pennsylvania, less than a year on death row. When Bowers broke into the Tree of Life synagogue on October 27, 2018, he defiled the house of worship by shooting everyone he could find with an AR-15 rifle. 11 people died that day. Another 7 people were wounded, including 5 police officers. Bowers repeatedly expressed his contempt of Jews on social media, and he also maintained his pride in having killed Jews. The legal team for Bowers has argued that their client suffers from schizophrenia, and that Bowers' attack on the synagogue was motivated by a mistaken notion that Jews were complicit in the genocide of white people. Meyer Jason Brown, Georgia, 20 years on death row. For the murder of a U.S. postal worker, Brown received the death penalty. The murder happened as part of a $1,175 money order heist at a post office in Fleming, Georgia. Postmistress Sally Gallia attempted to defend herself as the robbery took place, but Brown stabbed her 10 times before abandoning her to die alone and face down on the ground. Carlos Caro, Virginia, 16 years on death row. On December 17, 2003, at approximately 6:40 p.m., a prison guard at United States Penitentiary Lee in Jonesville, Virginia's Special Housing Unit, discovered that inmate Roberto Sandoval had been strangled to death inside his cell. His neck was wrapped with a towel. There had been no one else in the closed cell apart from his cellmate, Caro. Wesley Coons, Missouri, 9 years on death row. Charles Hall, Missouri, 9 years on death row. At the U.S. Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri, Charles Hall and Wesley Coons were found guilty of killing a fellow prisoner and given the death penalty. In court records, Coons was given a life sentence for a carjacking that resulted in a lady being essayed. Hall was facing a sentence for making threats against the federal prosecutor and judge. Victor Castro Rodriguez was the victim. He was beaten to death for allegedly assisting a guard in need who was being attacked by a fellow prisoner. Rodriguez, 51 years old, was found dead on the floor of his cell on January 26, 2010. Odell Corley, Indiana, 19 years on death row. On October 27, 2004, Corley was found guilty on several offenses, including capital murder and bank robbery, and he was given the death penalty. The convictions resulted from Corley's and other people's conduct on August 27, 2002, when they robbed a bank, killing 2 people and crippling a third. Corley, along with 4 other people, namely Edward Johnson, Andre McGregor, Danius Gay, and Gina Ramsey, were all part of the prearranged robbery attempt. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.